Today at Manchester Theatres, I am with OBE and Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature writer James Graham, whose Olivier-Award winning play Dear England is coming to the Lowry in May and June 2025. Now, James has written extensively across stage and screen with smash hits including Boys from the Black Stuff, This House. We've got West End hits, Broadway hits such as Finding Neverland. We've got Tammy Faye, Ink, Privacy, Labour of Love, and of course on television the hugely popular Sherwood, as well as Brexit, Uncivil War, and of course Quiz, which was also turned into a play that we saw at the Lowry not that long ago. James has awards and nominations coming out of his ears, has even been the subject of the BBC documentary series Imagine. But today it is all about the Olivier Award-winning play Dear England. So James, it's an honour to be chatting with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Karen. Really exciting to be here.
It's honestly, it is. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
So can you tell us all about the play Dear England? What does it do? What does it follow?
Definitely, yeah. So it basically follows the England men's football team, and in particular, the Gareth Southgate project that began in earnest in 2016. If you don't have to be a football fan, I don't think, to enjoy the play at all. It's sort of a story in its own right. But for those who do remember, it starts in 2016, very strangely, a couple of weeks after the Brexit referendum, when famously the previous manager, Sam Allardyce, lost his job after one game. England football team is at an all-time low, and they bring in Gareth Southgate just to be the caretaker to man the ship for a while. And then it charts what I think is possibly one of the most extraordinary 6-7 years in the life of the national game, in terms of how Gareth transformed not just our results, but actually what matters most to me, I guess, as a writer, is how he changed the culture, the feel, the psychology of the team through Russia, Qatar, the Euros in Wembley, and obviously now at the time of speaking to you, we're about to enter the Euros once again. So it's it's a story that keeps evolving, and that's why it's great to bring the play back to the National Theatre. But of course, most importantly, getting it out of London and coming here to the Lowry in Salford. So yeah, really excited.
It is, it's exciting. And I mean, the amount of research that you put into anything that you do is phenomenal. I mean, I believe you've been talking to the players and crew, like not crew, but like the team members,
coaching staff,
like
yeah.
The coaches. Sorry, I've got brain fog today.
No, don't worry.
But yeah, the coaches. And I mean, how long does it kind of take for you to, from you getting the idea to completing it when you're talking to so many people?
Yeah, I'm just a bit of a nerd, really. I really actually like that sort of detail, and a lot of it's about building trust. I mean, obviously, well, you might say quite rightly that some of these worlds can feel quite impenetrable. They're not used to, certainly in the FA and the England football team, they're not used to sitting down with playwrights and spilling their hearts out and giving all the state secrets away. And I do understand that. So it took a while. The truth is, I wrote to them after the Russia World Cup in 2018, after we famously beat the penalty curse against Colombia, the first time England had ever won a World Cup penalty shootout. The madness, like, we invented the game and we just couldn't get that. We just couldn't crack that one thing. And the fact that it was Gareth Southgate, of course, who was the manager that did that, when he himself was previously defined by this one moment where he missed the penalty in 1996. So I found that really inspiring. And I thought maybe that story on its own could be a play. And I wrote to them, and it took basically about 5-6 years to build up some of those relationships, not just with Gareth, but with the wider team, the FA, comms people, and certainly, players and things like that. So yeah, you just have to take your time. And I always think it's about being really honest and transparent with the people you're representing, being sincere in your desire to learn, to hear anxieties, to hear questions. But like you say, for me, it's you always go in wanting to know the big picture stuff, but it's also like the small stupid stuff, like where do you park? Do you get the bus in? Where do you get your lunch at the training ground? Is it a Pret, or what is it? Like you don't even know what you don't know, really, until you get these little juicy details of how do you run a national side.
Yeah, and because it isn't a documentary, even though you're dealing with real fact, it is fact meets fiction, isn't it? So where do you find that tipping point?
So that's a really good question. Yeah, there's always a tension between that. Your responsibility as a writer is to deliver a really entertaining night at the theatre for an audience, but you have a responsibility towards the truth as well. I don't want to misrepresent people in their opinions or in their behaviors or their choices. So, first off is stupidly comprehensible stuff like, we cover 8 years in the play, and the play is not, you'll be pleased to hear, not 8 years long. So you have to do a certain amount of, you have to compress 10 meetings into one meeting, and that means some people who weren't in that one you have to put in that meeting, and it's stuff like that. But I think you can make all those choices about going, I want to craft a structure that's really satisfying and that means something, a beginning, a middle, and an end. This Shakespearean arc of Gareth Southgate's rejuvenation and revival of the England football team that I think is really hopeful and really inspiring. You can do all that, but still pretty much stay faithful, I think, to the truth of who these people are and what they did.
And that's where it gets really interesting, because as you've mentioned, Gareth Southgate comes in, with a completely new approach, the psychology and the players as individuals. And so that then brings up themes in your play of male mental health and pressure expectations, which is just so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's, essentially any play or TV drama or film about sport is never going to just be about sport. And I think particularly when you're looking at the England national side, it's going to be about identity, like who are we, and how does this little corner of our national life, the England football team, reflect and refract who we are and where we are in our national life. How are we doing? Our confidence, our self-esteem. Are we divided? Are we united? And into that on a personal level, when you think about the plays in particular, these are, yes, I know they're millionaires. A lot of them come from this part of the world, and brilliantly so. But they're often quite young men from often sort of normal working class backgrounds, and then the amount of pressure they're put under. Well, frankly and famously, prior to Gareth Southgate, they weren't dealing with it. They weren't talking about it to us, the fans, and they certainly weren't talking about it to each other. And obviously, we understand that this is elite competitive sport. You don't want to show your vulnerabilities. You don't want to tell the people that you're competing for a place in the team that you're struggling, that you're worried. So you push it all down in that English keep calm and carry on way. And I think what Gareth Southgate identified through his own trauma, through when he missed that ball in '96 and didn't quite get the support he may have needed psychologically and emotionally to process that. He's done that work himself. And he decided that, well, he hoped, I guess, that these other boys 20 years on wouldn't go through what he went through, at least not in that way, not alone. And you can just feel that, like you probably, like, you or anyone else, instantly in 2018, 2 years after he took over, they felt different, these young men. They felt like they were playing together, they liked each other, which isn't always the case in the past. That the way they were carrying themselves was, yes, it was strong, but it was strong because they were happy to be vulnerable. They were dealing with their fears. They were communicating. The way they were communicating to us as fans was more open and more detailed and more honest. And yes, of course, what matters the most to fans is the results, which, by the way, have also been historically brilliant. Semi-final, final, quarter-final. That's never happened before in our national life. We can be just proud of this team again because they feel like role models. They feel like, these are generalizations. It's not perfect, and not everyone behaves as you always want them to do in the public eye. But I think this is a really remarkable thing that's happened culturally in the England football team.
It has. It really has. And this has been reflected within your play. It's been at the National, West End. It's been via National Theatre live streamed about 2,500 times in the cinema. It's coming to us. And as you've mentioned, in the meantime, before it comes to us, we're going to have had the Euros. So will the play be adapted at all to reflect that, or?
That's the hope and the dream. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's terrifying as a writer because, I am not in control with what happens in the next, in that tournament. And, but I think you have to. I think, the joy of theatre for me is, this is an obvious thing to say, but because it's live and because it can be responsive to what's happening in the world around it, it would feel sort of odd to me to just lock the story where we did, which ended after the Qatar World Cup in 2022. And I really like the ending that we have. It's, essentially, spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't know, but we didn't win the World Cup in Qatar. But what did happen was that Harry Kane famously missed a penalty, which means we didn't beat France. And, you know, the symmetry of that, him going through what his mentor and manager Gareth Southgate did. But I think the lesson there is all those years on, we'd actually started to learn to lose better. We started to learn to understand how we can not destroy ourselves by losing and still take some kind of lesson, some kind of value from that, and make sure everyone's okay, by the way, like make sure Harry Kane is okay. And Harry Kane is okay in the way that Gareth took a while to be okay based on his miss. So that feels like quite a good ending to me. So whatever the boys deliver in Germany, it's got to compete with that. But yeah, we will absolutely be taking in what happens into the play.
And what's kind of lovely as well is hopefully that mentality, and like you say, that Gareth Southgate's gone in and he's really worked and changed it through your play as well. We can start to see that, and hopefully that will feed through to the fans, because that's where the pressure comes from and all of the hate and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And Gareth speaks about this. You know, we get the title of the play, Dear England, is because of this letter he wrote to the fans directly in the Euros when we were accidentally hosting them because of the pandemic. And it's the most, like, if people haven't read it, they should. It's the most extraordinary sort of honest, direct, emotionally intelligent, non-patronizing, I'm going to speak to you as adults letter I think any England manager has ever done, because he, as opposed to avoiding things, pretending things don't exist, he just calls them out. He recognizes how important this moment is to fans. He uses language like every memory of a game sears itself into the national consciousness, and just like language like that, like he knows what it feels like to watch England progress, and every memory that gives us. I could tell you every single pub or home or back garden I was in for every single match throughout my entire life. If you just say England v Sweden, I'd be like, I know it was. And it's true, it becomes part of our national story for fans, and that, of course, as you say, then adds a different kind of pressure for these players, and it can when it's at its best, it's gorgeous, and when it's at its worst, it's horrible and it's toxic, and it's not fair on ourselves. Like, why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we beat ourselves up? Why can't we even find a value in losing, like taking from that lessons of growth? So yeah, I agree. Hopefully, like you say, doing a play about this and putting people into a theatre, all the power of what theatre does in terms of empathy and nuance and being able to understand these characters and what they're living through day to day, and also just being surrounded, like in a football match, the joy of a theatre, especially at the Lowry when it's sort of 1,700 people all sat together as one community, laughing, crying, getting on your feet at the end. Audiences always get on their feet and have a little sing to Sweet Caroline at the end of the play. It's you're right. It helps us process what sport does to us and what the England identity means to us as well.
And lastly, before I let you go, I believe that the BBC are going to be turning this into a television series. Is that correct?
That is correct. Although only if I finish it, only if I write the damn thing, which is an ongoing project. But yes, we're going to adapt it into, I think, a 4-part TV drama, which will include the Euros this year. So we'll be filming that next year for the BBC. And that's a really exciting way to. I will always believe that the optimum experience of this play will be live in a theatre, just because of what the power of what that does and the euphoria of that. But a different way of getting it out to audiences as well will be on television. So really, really grateful and excited about that.
Absolutely. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Not at all. Thank you.
We do love our football around these parts. So
I feel the pressure, like 4 of the world-class teams a stone's throw from here.
Yeah, but just have to look out the window. Yeah,
I know. I can. It's just over there, Old Trafford, but that's fine. No pressure. It's all good.
Thank you so much. You can catch Dear England, written by James Graham, coming May and June 2025 to the Lowry. Come along and watch this Olivier-winning play. It is going to be fabulous. James, thank you so much. Thank you.
Cheers, Karen. Thanks, everyone.
Dear England, I can't possibly hope to speak for an entire country, but I would like to share a few things with you as we begin this journey.
England needs a new start. story.
I don't think the problem's out there on the pitch. I think it's here.
Pressure getting to you already, is it?
This is men dealing or not dealing with fear.
I don't need to invite you all into my head.
Thank you, Gareth.
This is a story, and you are the storytellers.
This feels like a different England. Like fearless, having fun out there.
Well, it's all the mental preparation.
What is all this we're hearing on the top floor? Share your doubts, feelings.
Come on, England! Come on, England!
You think I'd heard that stuff coming from the stands before?
Should we all of us collectively say something, maybe?
You think it's that easy?
You haven't walked away from that spot. You're still there.
I think I may have let them down.
Your clock is still ticking.
Beginning, middle,
End.